Hello everyone and welcome to a new video from Your Overwatch. I'm Eddie the Chump, and today we're going to cover the news that on the PTR, one of Hanzo's most powerful interactions, the way his ultimate can be damage boosted by a Mercy to chew through defensive ults like Transcendence, has been changed. Now the original forum post to this didn't actually include any video proof, so we decided to go and test it. And yes, it does appear to be true. Dragonstrike no longer receives 30% extra damage boost from a Mercy pocket. It also isn't boosted by a Reese's Supercharger or Anna's Nano Boost. Before we jump into talking about what this means, we do need to acknowledge that this might be a bug. It is a test server, and the fact that Blizzard haven't said anything about it could mean that it's unintended. They talked about his Storm Arrow nerfs directly by comparison. If it is intended, perhaps when more changes get pushed to the PTR for various things, they'll update the patch notes to reflect that. Now obviously this raises some interesting knock-on effects for the game. I'm going to work on the assumption that it is intended for the moment, and in that light, one can guess why they might have done it. Blizzard can see every stat conceivable behind the scenes. Just how many Grav Dragonstrike team wipes do you think there were last season in competitive? I'm gonna wager quite a lot. It did in fact become part of the unofficial meta comp. Rein, Zarya, Hanzo, Mercy were seen as pretty much must picks for basically a whole season. Having a virtually guaranteed team wipe combo is certainly a very powerful tool. Zen's Trance likely wouldn't save you if the dragon was Mercy boosted, with a few exceptions, like a friendly Anna nade in there to help it, or your own Mercy Valking at the same time. Perhaps because of its pervasiveness and effectiveness, Blizzard were like, yeah, that's a bit too strong. But here's the thing, I'm not so sure it was so good it needed nerfing, and that's coming from a filthy Zen 1 trick. Now guys, hear me out. I did just say it was very good, and it was, but firstly, it's a very expensive combo, Grav takes a long time to build, and secondly, you could outplay that comp on quite a few maps where despite it being very popular, wasn't particularly suited to. People played it everywhere all the time, but for example, what good is it on Gibraltar Hangar section if the enemy team just takes dive tanks on the high ground and splits around you? A fat Grav combo may never materialize if your opponents deny you the easy opportunity. My point is, it flattered to deceive a little bit, like Rein Zarya in general actually. Sure, if you got a fat Grav, it could be GG for that fight because of the Mercy boost on the dragon, even if the enemy Zen decided to trance. But good Zens adapted and wouldn't waste trance in that circumstance, instead saving it for another team fight if they didn't also have the other utility to help them out. My attitude is, just because something is strong when executed properly doesn't mean it's overpowered, even if it doesn't have a direct answer per se. Grav Pulse Bomb can be just as devastating, as can a damage boosted Pharah Barrage that will eat through trance healing too. Perhaps a dragon is easier to hit than those two examples, and maybe Blizzard aren't just concerned with the combo example. A damage boosted dragon through a wall at an off angle could be very good too. But the whole thing strikes me as a little bit odd. If you were concerned with the strength of a damage boosted Dragonstrike, why wouldn't you lower its base damage to the point where it needed a Mercy boost to be comparable to its current unboosted state? Just flatly removing the Mercy boost functionality seems, well, a little bit clumsy. There's a bit of a logic break to me. Barrage can be boosted, High Noon can, loads of stuff can, but Hanzo ult, no sorry fam. Let me know what you guys think about this. Am I the only one to think just having the boost not work on his ult doesn't make any sense? I'll tell you what this definitely is, and that's an indirect buff to my boy Zen. I guess Trance just got a little bit better, but here's the thing, boosted Dragon Grav wasn't the only thing that Trance couldn't save your team from. A Junkrat Tire, a High Noon, the aforementioned Mercy boosted Barrage, anything truly burst orientated, Trance was useless against. So it doesn't make sense to me to pick out one example and say, no, that one is too good. It is true, it may have been the one that everyone was using for a time, but that's the ebb and the flow of the game. When Hammond arrives, everything's going to shift again anyway, and a lot less teams will just play mirrored death balls at each other on every map, so the opportunities to use that combo will be less frequent anyway. Overall, I do think this nerf is a little bit unnecessary. However, what isn't unnecessary, Hanzo mains, is getting your hands on one of these sick new Hanzo statues that are now available for pre-order. Much like the amazing Widowmaker, Diva and Tracer statues to name just a few, this Hanzo recreation is available from the Blizzard Gear Store online, and if you're in the EU is priced at €175. If you do pre-order, it's scheduled to be delivered before the end of Q4 in 2018, so that means before Christmas. These statues are honestly one of the coolest pieces of Overwatch memorabilia. They're amazingly realised and sculpted, and I'm always blown away by the detail. Hanzo's main design is one of the best in the game in my opinion, and it is really given the space to shine in 3 dimensions. The tattoo on his arm is a particular highlight for me, and I'm very, very tempted. If I were you, I'd add it to your collection so it can easily be any of the other statues in a 1v1. Just don't put Mercy next to him, as they've had a bit of a falling out recently. Sorry, was that too soon? I'll move on. Next up, we've got a very interesting tweet from the LA Gladiators pro player Surefours. In this tweet, Surefours suggests that as more heroes who are based around powerful abilities and cooldowns are released into the game, hitscan characters will need some reworking. However, he also says that if you give hitscan characters powerful abilities of their own, they can become very oppressive in the hands of mechanically skilled players. But if you don't do that by the same token, they can get overshadowed and oppressed themselves. This is actually quite a deep observation, and you can see it in the fate of 2 hitscan characters currently in the game. Widowmaker, whose grapple hook buff really did open up a new era of opportunity for her, and McCree, who as everyone knows is always on the knife edge of being too focusable and flimsy or outrageously overpowered. But to me it speaks of a deeper conundrum than just how to balance those 2 heroes. We've noted that yes, there have been a few new heroes that resemble more of a MOBA archetype than a shooter archetype, and by that I mean they are based around ability management and cooldowns more than mechanics. Brigitte is a great example of that, and the thread that runs through all of this is how to manage the skill versus strategy equation. Widow does have some strategy of her own, but mainly she's a hero concerned with clicking heads, which is very mechanically demanding. Compare that to say D.Va, who has very powerful abilities to manage and requires great game sense and reading of a match to be in the right place doing the right thing to be effective, with less emphasis on mechanical skill. I didn't say none, but certainly less. Now I'm a bit torn because there is a big part of me that says skill should be able to dominate at the absolute apex. And I say that as a player who is not that mechanically gifted. When I watch Overwatch League, for example, I think I will always be more attracted to say Jonak's ridiculous Zen plays or Carpe's Widow than I will Meko's exemplary D.Va or Fisher's Winston. Not that I don't admire incredible tank play, and that's not to say Fisher's Winston mechanics aren't fantastic, they absolutely are, but they just don't affect me in the same way. Now perhaps that's a personal bias, I'm prepared to admit that that could be the case. As for Surefours' tweet, there is also a part of me that thinks perfect balance isn't really possible as a reality. There will always be a power pyramid to a certain extent, with the strongest utility at the top, and depending on the choices Blizzard make about how to balance their game, whatever's at the very top might be one or the other. But there is also something illusory about all this too. Say for example mechanics at the very top do have the potential to win out. That is no guarantee that they always will. They often don't. A far worse situation, admittedly from my subjective viewpoint, would be that the easier heroes to play are just so strong, mechanically demanding heroes become not worth it, which has happened before for brief periods. For example, the triple tank Beyblade meta wasn't the game's highlight for me, but I know a lot of people really enjoyed it, so it is a complicated issue for sure. Let me know what you guys think about all this. Should aim skill dominate if the player is good enough, or does the joy of Overwatch for you reside in the various strategies one can play irrespective of mechanics? Again, I just want to reiterate, skill and strategy aren't mutually exclusive concepts. But I would like to know which direction you guys want the game to move in. And that's about it for today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to leave a rating. If you never want to miss another video of ours again, please click the bell icon next to the subscribe button on our channel to join the notification squad. You'll be in great company. And finally, please follow the Your Overwatch Twitter. It's where you can find updates about new videos and other cool stuff. I've been Eddie the Chump, and until next time.